Hello, and welcome to Appleton Engaged. I'm your host, Timber Smith, Special Assistant to the Mayor for Community, Culture, and Belonging.
And I am Connie Vargas, the Executive Assistant to the Mayor.
And Appleton Engaged is a podcast that explores the many people, organizations, and resources that make our community a great place to live, work, and play. So whether you're a longtime resident or just getting to know Appleton, join us as we learn more about our community together.
We are pleased to welcome leaders of Apricity, an organization redefining care for those impacted by substance use disorders through comprehensive treatment, employment opportunities, and much more. Let's learn a little bit more about them, why don't we?
Yes, I'm super excited about this conversation. I always love a new resource that I'm not as familiar with, so I can learn more about those who are out here impacting our community and making it a better place. This week's guest is Dan Haak, President over Contract Packaging and Recovery Support for Apricity, and Jolie VerVoort, President of Residential Treatment of Apricity. Hello, you two. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
for being here and making a little time to be on Appleton Engaged. If you two don't mind, can you please share a little something about yourself and your association with Appleton and the Fox Cities region? And Dan, let's start with you.
Sure. So I pretty much grew up in the Fox Valley. I mean, I've lived in Kaukauna most of my life, but have been around for sure the sports world. I have kids who play baseball and softball, and we've been in and around Appleton, Fox Cities, chasing them around. And then just love the community and the closeness that kind of provides.
And I'm Jolie, and I too have been an Appleton resident for most of my life, most recently in Greenville, but turning up on 50 years in a couple of weeks and been here my whole life. My children are also in sports, so we have a basketball player, a football player, and a competitive dancer.
Ooh, that's variety.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Keeps you busy.
Sure does.
Facts. All right. So, can you please tell us about your resource?
Yeah, I can start. So Apricity has many aspects of helping people with substance use disorders. So I'm the president of residential treatment, and that's kind of the first stop for people that are struggling with substance use. At Apricity Residential Treatment, they come into treatment for a period of time. Average length of stay is about 60 days, and it is intensive treatment to help them understand why they're using drugs or alcohol, understanding new coping skills, understanding behavioral things that are going on with their life, just gaining an understanding of all of the things that have attributed to their substance use. From there, we have the ability, once they're finished with treatment, to move into different levels of care, different aspects of Apricity, and that's where Dan's department comes in.
Yeah, so I oversee our employment services. So people in early recovery who are looking for a safe place to work, safe from stigma, but also kind of safe from other people who might be using drugs or talking about happy hour after work, like coming out of treatment where people aren't quite sure how to stabilize in their recovery and sobriety. We hire them. The staff is in recovery, so we've been there and we understand what things they're going through. We support them to help them rebuild their work history, but we do work with manufacturers in the Valley. So we work with companies like Dixon and Great Northern Corp and provide those supportive roles for people to get back on their feet, learn what it's like to be an employee, how to dress, how to act, how to speak, how to work as a team. And then they learn some of those skills like rebuilding their attendance, things like that. And then after they've been with us for a while, we take it kind of another step. If they want to work on a resume, if they want to go back to school, get their GED, get their driver's license, our staff helps to support them while they work through those things. And then at the same time, we try to be as flexible as we can with their schedule. We know that they have appointments around their mental health. They have medical appointments, things like that. They have treatment requirements. So we try to be flexible with them while still holding them accountable to be an employee like they would have to after they leave us. We want them to be better prepared after they leave us to be more successful in that next job. And then after that, we also have 4 sober living houses in Appleton and Neenah. So as people are ready to transition out of residential treatment, we have sober living houses, and that allows them to have a little bit more length of time and supported recovery, so that space between treatment and independence on their own, they're kind of continuing to transition. So while they're working on their employment, they also are working on budgets. They're working on what living a life of recovery looks like. And then if you can do that with another 4 or 5 other roommates, in effect, they support each other. So they become kind of their own supportive family unit. They lean on each other. They have an additional level of accountability for their recovery, for doing chores, kind of helping to operate the house, cooking meals, grocery shopping, things like that. And then another program that we have is just a peer recovery program. So we have an app called Recovery 180 that people can get connected to a recovery coach. That one is a grant-sponsored app that we've collaborated with WISHOPE, an organization in Waukesha. And we provide connection to recovery coaches, but also there's an interactive map of statewide treatment and recovery resources. So no matter where you are, you can log into the app and find treatment facilities near you. You could find an AA meeting near you, no matter where you are in the state. And then another organization or another program that we do within that is called ED2 Recovery. So we, in 2020, started working with Theta Care to send recovery coaches into a hospital after somebody survives an overdose or has a history of opioid or alcohol misuse. So when people are in that very vulnerable state in the hospital, we have recovery coaches who are on call 24/7. We get a call to any of the 7 Theta Care hospitals from Shawano to Green Lake, and then from any of the Ascension hospitals in St. E's, Mercy, and Oshkosh, and Calumet. And our recovery coaches show up and try to find out what that patient might need. And sometimes that might need access to treatment and recovery, and sometimes they just want somebody to listen to. And so we help connect them to whatever resource that might look like.
So here's what I hear. You have treatment services with this crazy full array of wraparound stabilizing services to
Yes.
help people really get back on their feet.
That's exactly what we have. Starts with treatment and it just rolls from there.
And
That is amazing.
it's a pretty long continuum, or can be, and I think that's the benefit. Recovery doesn't happen in 28 days, and so finding ways for people to extend those services or enter in at different levels. I think the other part is people don't have to go to our residential treatment in order to go to our sober living or to come and be employed by us. They can go to other treatment centers, or people who leave treatment don't have to go to our sober living. You can come and go at any different level. I think the other thing that I do want to just mention is we've been around since the late 70s. So Mooring Programs was the residential treatment centers in Appleton, and Step Industries was the employment side of things. And in 2018, we merged and became Apricity. And so that's where you had this large continuum of different programs that came together to support people in recovery.
That's awesome. Just to kind of add on, with this big array of resources that you have for the actual individual, do you guys offer anything for the families to maybe understand them more, how to help them through?
Sure, that's a great question. So we do have a monthly meeting. It's the 4th Wednesday of every month. It's called Daybreak, and that is for the families of individuals that are struggling with substance use disorders. You don't have to be in treatment with us. You don't have to be living in sober living. You don't have to be working at Apricity Contract Packaging. It's open to anybody, and it's free. So that is the 4th Wednesday of every month. And then when we do have individuals in treatment, our counselors do meet with the family members throughout the treatment just to kind of help the transition back home, or even the transition of what is it like now to have a loved one who's now in recovery, and what does that look like for our relationship? What does that look like for family dynamics, those types of things? So yes, we do support the family as well.
Is there a cost associated with these services? Because, I mean, that's a lot of service.
Yeah, so when you come into treatment, there's definitely a cost associated with it. We do take private insurance as well as Medicaid, and then the counties that individuals live in often help with some of that cost as well. And then sober living.
Sober living, the residents pay fees to live there, and those fees cover all of their utilities, TV, internet. It covers a portion of food, and then part of it is on their own to also provide their kind of additional food. The house works together to supply their own toilet paper, laundry soap, things like that. Like they have a pool of money that they work from. And then there also is grant funding for sober living. We want to keep our sober living costs low enough so they pay $450 a month in fees. We want it to be affordable. We know that people in early recovery have a lot of financial burden, and so we want to make sure that they're able to stay there while also working on budgets. They have fines, they have restitution, they have things that they need to pay for. The peer recovery programs are grant funded, so funding is provided through Wisconsin Department of Human Services, and then kind of funneled down through a program called Wisconsin Voices for Recovery. That's who funds the ED2 recovery services. Theta Care also helps to fund those services. Ascension funds those services. So peer programs, there's no cost to the patient. So when we show up at the hospital, we aren't charging them, and that grant funding will actually cover our recovery coaches to meet with those peers for up to 18 months.
Well, I heard you say the word counties. So what is the footprint that you cover?
All of Wisconsin. We have contracts with all of the counties in Wisconsin. Outagamie County, Winnebago County, some of our biggest customers, so to speak. But like I said, we have contracts with counties all over the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, about half of a little more than half of our clients come from Winnebago and Outagamie County. But I think recently I saw a statistic where we've worked with 44 counties and 6 different tribes in Wisconsin.
Wow, that might be all the counties.
Yeah. Why don't you guys share a story that will help our listeners understand a little bit more of the importance of this organization? Something that's in your mind that that's impactful to you, that has been impactful.
Sure. So I'll talk about 2. One of them came out of our ED2 recovery program. We had a person who, one of our recovery coaches met at CNE's and was suicidal, had been in and out of the emergency department after overdose and years of alcohol abuse. And finally, like, our coach happened to show up on a day when they were vulnerable enough and open enough to listen. And so the coach just went in and said, what are you looking for? What can I help you with? Help them get into treatment at Nova. We didn't hear from this person for a couple of months, got out of treatment, got connected to the local AA and NA community, and at this point had been sober for 15 months. So finding people at the right time is important, and we never know when that is. But being there to listen and provide that connection to those resources, whether it's treatment, whether it's recovery, or it's just support. The other thing that I'll talk about is just peer support in general. On the packaging and employment side of things, we're very much peer run. So I went to treatment. Well, I went to Mooring House before it was residential treatment. It was a halfway house. I stayed there. Eventually, they made me get a job. So I went to then Step Industries, and that was in 1998. Our staff that's running our plant, that's our HR people, our team leaders, are people who came through the program. So we understand what people are struggling with. We understand what they're going through. It allows us to speak to them, I think, in a way that gives us some credibility and helps them to kind of relate to us. And hopefully that they understand that recovery is possible, that people can turn the corner, they can find a different way to live, because it can be scary. So I think the fact, I mean, one of our program coordinators, she worked at Casa Clara as a house manager for a little while. And then she came back by us and is now helping people to go back to school because she went back to school because she got her associate's degree and has continued in human resources, has continued to provide those supports for people that she learned from early on in her recovery.
So just to piggyback off of Dan a little bit, we have two facilities. So we have Mooring House, which treats men, and then we have Castle Clare, which treats women. And we see a lot of clients, do all portions of our program, and then they end up working for us as permanent staff. So one of the stories that actually came out today was an individual who went to treatment at Castle Clare. She was pregnant when she got here, and she had her baby when she was with us, and we helped her at the beginning stages of that. So single mom, new baby, first child. She went on to work at Apricity Contract Packaging. She then got a house or an apartment on her own. She's now a foster mom. She's now helping other children whose parents are in a situation that she was when she first came to us. Those are some of the success stories that we see, and I'm actually getting the goosebumps now just talking about that story, but I happened to see her today, and it was just a really nice feel-good moment.
That is actually pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That is definitely impact. Mm-hmm. So how big's your team?
Our team, we have, I think total, we probably employ 50 plus people.
I was going to say, it's probably right around 50 people.
Yeah.
Varying levels. We have the 3 locations in the valley. So we have the 2 treatment centers. The employment facility is in Neenah, and then we also have another employment facility in Milwaukee.
And do you know approximately how many people you're serving at this time?
Like sitting here at this day, how many people
well,
we're serving?
No. Well, I didn't know because I know places don't do it by the day or anything like this. But do you guys? Is it normally like 100 people or 150 people or?
Yeah, closer to 400 people
Whoa.
a year. Yep, between all the facilities.
Okay,
Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things to that is there's a continuing need, right? Jolie deals with waiting lists to the residential treatment center on a pretty regular basis.
Are there any upcoming initiatives or events or engagement opportunities that the community can get involved in at all, or just in general with the organization?
So to go off of what Dan said, there's always waiting lists, right? So there's a need to expand at some point. And although we don't have anything coming up right now, we encourage and invite people to, we're a nonprofit company, as we talked about earlier. We encourage people to do monetary donations if they can. We encourage people to do clothing donations, non-expired food donations, anything to, if you think of our population, they're literally coming from nothing. So everything that we provide for them has to come from somewhere. And with being a nonprofit, it sometimes gets a little difficult. So people come in with no clothing. So we have a donation closet full of clothing. We utilize Goodwill. We utilize the clothes closet. We have great partnerships with them. They don't have any toiletries. So Help for the Homeless is a big nonprofit drive that happens in the spring, and once those goods are gone, then Apricity purchases those items for the people that don't have anything. So donations are always definitely something that we appreciate.
And where can the community drop off the donations, or who do they need to contact to do that?
You can visit our website for some of that information, which is apricityservices.com. That's APRICITY services.com. You can drop them off at any one of our 3 locations. So we have the plant in Neenah, we have Castle Clare in Appleton, and Mooring House in Appleton.
I heard you mention something like there's a waiting list. So
Yes.
there's a lot happening, right? How long is that waiting list, or not how long it is, but how long is the time? That a person, if they're looking to get into the service, what's the approximate wait time at this time?
We average about 2 to 3 weeks. So,
Oh, that's really good.
It is good, but I can tell you, this fall, it was more like 5 weeks. So it really ebbs and flows. So if you think of somebody who's really struggling with addiction and they're finally ready to go to treatment and they call to get into treatment, like, I'm ready, I'm tired of being sick, and they call into us and say, I want to come to treatment tomorrow. And our answer is, we can't get you in for 2 to 3 weeks. That's life-changing for them. It could be life or death, so which is why there's always that need to expand. And anything we can do to help move that along quicker is going to be beneficial to them.
So I know you covered this a little bit in the last question, but is there anything else that the community can do to be helpful?
So I think one thing from a contract packaging and employment program or side of our business is we employ people. So the jobs that we provide for people are jobs that are coming out of other organizations. So things that companies don't want to mess around with, we do kitting and collating, light manufacturing, light assembly, things that take up time and space on a manufacturer's floor. Those are the jobs that we can do in our building. And so we're always happy to bid on projects, provide tours, but the more work that we have that allows us to provide more stable employment and help people kind of rebuild their work history, that those experiences, different types of projects, different types of manufacturing, that all makes our employees better. And the better they become, they typically leave. About half of our people leave for new jobs. So they're coming back into the Fox Valley, hopefully as a stronger employee than when they initially started with us. So we're really trying to rebuild that workforce and help them back into the workforce in Appleton or in the Fox Valley, which then makes the employment better in the long run. I think we also try to think about it as a group of people who are really consuming a lot of services, right? They're in jail. They're maybe more police contacts, things that potentially can cost the community money if they're employed, paying rent, paying taxes, like helping to move things back forward. They're in a sense giving back to the community as well.
What are some examples of other nonprofit organizations that support you guys? That maybe there might be other nonprofits or other organizations out there that could continue to support?
So like I said earlier, we partner with Goodwill. We partner with Clothes Closet. Levin is a great resource for our residents.
St. Joe's Food Pantry.
Yes.
Jolie mentioned the hygiene drive. So 911, the AV, they're a great supporter.
And one of the other things that the community can do as a whole is not shame people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol. I know we've seen a lot of stuff in the news about overdoses and opioid use and all of that, but stigma is a big thing. And if we start making using drugs and alcohol for those that struggle with it normal, or at least what am I trying to say here?
Empathetic.
Yes. Yeah. That'll change the way that, nobody wakes up one day and says, I want to be a drug addict. Nobody wakes up and says,
Facts.
I want to be an alcoholic. Although a lot of people that don't understand the disease concept think it's a choice, and there's part that's a choice. Trust me. There's a part that says, am I going to drink alcohol today or am I not going to drink alcohol today? But it's also a disease. And until they have the tools, until they have the guidance, until they have the path on how to overcome that, it's very, very difficult for individuals to stop on their own. So if you see somebody that's struggling, if you hear somebody that's struggling, if you have thoughts of somebody that's struggling, make it okay to ask. Make it not shameful. Make them not feel like they're full of guilt and shame, because they are. And when you approach it, make them feel like that, it's not going to go anywhere.
Are there any other myths or misconceptions that people typically have about recovery and treatment in that journey?
So one of the things that we talked about a couple of weeks ago was you don't have to go into treatment or decide to enter into recovery and think I have to do this for the rest of my life. If you take it a day at a time or an hour at a time, start there. Let's start small and see what it builds into. Dan always tells his story when he entered treatment. He was going to be there for a month just until he could get on the good graces of his family. And how many years are you at, Dan?
26.
Oh, wow.
So, and that was taking it first a day at a time.
Right. And then I think people have to understand the benefits of. So one of the myths that I had, especially growing up in Wisconsin, was if I attended some of these events that I was going to as a kid or, when in my early 20s, was that if I showed up at some of the events, if I went to a Packer game, if I went to a Brewer game, I was probably going to be the only one that wasn't drinking at this event, right? And then I started looking around, like the first time I went to a Packer game, and started looking around and noticed other people that weren't drinking. They can't all be in recovery. Just the numbers don't add up. But that's the way I felt in my brain, was that I would be the only person. So I think there are more people out there that choose to not drink just because, which, in my early 20s was kind of unfathomable. But now I think it has become a little bit more mainstream. And Jolie and I just did a radio segment, and we're talking about dry January, right? And so the growth of that, where people are making resolutions, maybe looking at ways to live healthier. And I think that it's just the start of it. So when I was, like Jolie said, when I first got into recovery, I didn't know what it looked like. And it was overwhelming to think about never using drugs again. And now I think I'm at a point, and I think what I wish on everybody else is that the more you give it a chance, the longer that you can stay sober, the more benefits you start to recognize and see. So for me at this point, could I maybe have a drink? Sure. But why? What would that do for me? How does that make things better? And so I think that's where I have gotten to it now at this point.
Now that you say it, I have had a number of friends who were doing dry January. And I was actually like, oh, wow. And I had never heard of it before, but that is a thing this year. Like, I've had quite a few people mention it.
Oh, yeah, it's on social media. It's on TikTok. It's everywhere.
Oh, see, now you're talking about things that's outside of my age category.
I was just going to say, you can tell the age difference all of a sudden.
Maybe.
That's how we keep it interesting.
No, so exactly.
All right. Would you be able to tell our listeners where we can contact you, your websites, social media?
Sure. So as I said earlier in our recording here, apricityservices.com, APRICITY services.com. Direct phone call, and you can find that on the web as well. Just look up Apricity. We are on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't think we do TikTok.
We don't.
But any of those avenues, for sure, you can find us and read about us. Go to our website. You'll get a ton of information about what we have to offer.
Is there any additional information that you feel is important for the Appleton Engaged listeners to know that maybe we didn't ask a question about?
I think I would just point out, like I said earlier, both programs and organizations have been around since the late 70s, early 80s, have been kind of a secret to the community. And some of that is by design, right? It's drug and alcohol, and there's some confidentiality and things like that. But we want to make sure that people know that help is there. So reach out through email, social media, through the website, whatever makes sense for people. There is help available. You just have to reach out.
Excellent. No, well, thank you very much to both of you for being here, for sharing this amazing resource. I'm sure this is going to be a great resource for a lot of the community members that may not have known that Apricity exists. So thank you very much for everything that you do.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys having us.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity.
Do you want to do any shout outs before we end?
Yeah, Dan and I work with a wonderful staff. Like we said earlier, there's about 50 of us, and we work long days, nights, weekends. We're 24/7 in many of our different programs that we have within Apricity. So thanks to all of them. We have a great board of directors that is there to support us and help us, and is always willing to do whatever we ask of them. And funders, we do get a lot of donations, and there's many people that support us, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do without our funders.
Okay. Well, Dan and Jolie, thank you. At this time, Appleton Engaged listeners, we're going to start wrapping up this episode. So I just want to say thank you for giving us your minds and ears. Thank you for caring about this community and being interested in another amazing resource out here, making a great impact, making this a better place. This is such an important service for those out there that need it. We're all in this together, no matter what we're going through. So we appreciate you taking the time. Now, you already know what we are here to do. We are here to hopefully become the #1 podcast in Northeast Wisconsin, but we can't do it without your help. So there's a couple of things you can do to help us. Hey, if you have any great ideas or if there's any questions you would like us to ask our guests in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you would like to be a guest because you have a great resource that you would like to share with the community, reach out to us. Or if you're listening right now and you're thinking, why haven't they done an episode with this particular resource? Well, you know what? Let us know, because we can reach out to them and we can make that happen. And you can reach out to us at belonging@appletonwi.gov. Once again, that is belonging@appletonwi.gov. Also, we think we have a very valuable resource here in the community, helping to make it a better place. But the only way that it gets better is if we get in front of more eyes and ears. And how do we do that? It's called analytics. So how do we improve our analytics? Well, right now, while you're listening to this episode, take a moment and hit that subscribe button that's sitting on your screen. And if you got a few other moments, if there's an opportunity to give us a rating, give us those 5 stars, or just go all in and just fill out a full review to us. Those are the things that help increase our analytics. And the better our analytics, the more eyes and ears get to learn about this amazing resource called Appleton Engaged.
Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay curious, and stay engaged.